Hello, patrons. It is Tuesday, February 13th, 2018. Tuesday morning, specifically. I'm feeling much better. Here's your cup of Jones. Cheers, everybody. Feeling much better, yeah. Here's the thing. We do this every week. I saw some comments from people that were like, "Hey, Jones, if you're not feeling well, you can still hear it a little bit." They're like, if you're not feeling good, you don't need to do Cup of Jones. But that's the nice thing about how casual this has gotten. Not only producing Cup of Jones the way I did before, by recording everything beforehand and doing a nice, neat edit, but doing it live now, and all of the fun issues that come with just committing to doing this at 10 a.m. every... never too early for vodka. Cheers, Christian Thomas. So everybody jumping in with their time zones. It's nice to hear where and when it is for everyone in the world. Hopefully 10 a.m. Pacific time here on the west coast of California. It is a good time for everyone around the world. I don't have a ton of updates. I'm dying to give you that the meetup update. I specified last week it's at Tommy's Place in USC. I need to lock down both tickets so we can get those on sale and a venue for us to hang out after the fact if we're going to do that. We don't necessarily have to, but we will be at the event until 11 p.m. But next week, I am putting the law, because it's a month out, that we will give you that big update. Not only, obviously, we've been talking about a lot here on Patreon, on Cup of Jones, but making the big YouTube video announcement that you can share that has all of the details for our second anniversary and our meetup. But it's been fun working with Ian. It's been really interesting seeing what Allies did last year and what they want to do this year. And there's still a couple things. We've got a month. There's still a couple things I hopefully want to convince them to do. But let's, tonight is going to be the return of the, everything looks and sounds okay. Tonight is going to be the return, the revenge of the Dreamcast. Last week, my Dreamcast died. I never owned a Dreamcast. I had the Game Trailers Dreamcast. When we dissolved Game Trailers, we handed out all the games, we handed out all the costumes and equipment. I mean, there's still like 2 Wii U debug units, and I'm just like, why? I should send those back. I'm not using those. Just random stuff that I grabbed. And I wanted that Dreamcast, because I'm like, I've never had that system, and so that was one of the first things. I'm like, yoink. But it was a sports version of the Dreamcast. I don't know how that came into the, collection of Game Trailers, but Dreamcast is gone. It sucks when a console dies, I remember when my 3DO died. My Jaguar probably doesn't work anymore. I mean, nowadays, like when with the Red Ring era of the 360 came around, it was like I'm going through 2 or 3 consoles. I think I went through a couple Xboxes. I think the only reason I got a second PS2 was just because they made better ones. I think I got a Slim just because it was cool and did cool stuff. It was nice to have another DVD player, but it hurts so bad. The 3DO especially, because it's like, I'm not going to buy another 3DO. Jaguar games I can maybe emulate, but sad. But tonight, thanks to Mr. Michael Huber, through his console and his collection, will be taking us on a journey through the first fancy 15 minutes of some of your favorite Dreamcast games. So I'm excited to see that come together. Feedback. Alexander Zirianov, who another week after another week of Cup of Jones is the comment crusader, going in, replying to comments, making sure everything is visible and everything is seen. I think I got everything this week. Imagine Cup of Jones, where cup means a prize in a competition. What is this competition about, and how does this cup look? I mean, it's probably this. Maybe, like, you see how it's kind of like lighter wood, for those different panels? Maybe that's like gold. But it'd be nice to have like a participation cup too. That's not normal cup size, so you don't actually get to like drink out of it, but it's like almost like kind of a Monopoly piece, like a little small cup. And what is this competition about? GoldenEye. Slappers only. Facility. That's the competition. Dave Red, an idea to temporarily patch solve to the commenting issue here on Patreon would be to utilize the forum on EasyAllies.com. I imagine the initial reaction of having to go to another place is unappealing, but it would give a hopefully more stable location to collect the comments. The thing, Dave, is the exclusivity around the comments. It's not only that I'm getting comments from people that want to talk to me about Easy Allies, because those people, there are a lot of those people. But specifically, I want to hear from the patrons. And I think there is just something pure about talking about Patreon on Patreon, using the services of Patreon. Even the technology that is making this happen, YouTube streaming, is not something that they've initially had. So the current state of Cup of Jones also represents the evolution of the technology available within Patreon itself. And hopefully that will, I mean, I'm getting messages and I'm hearing about, you know, mods and things that you can do to Patreon. Like there's things that we could, some connective tissue that we could create between Patreon and our patrons to make some of the tech on here work. But I really, like I said, I like it being straightforward. I like it being like, this is Patreon. Hi, welcome to patreon.com/easyallies. Because as you know, this is nothing official about this actually being a financial meeting, but we do like to talk about it that way. And so, you know, this is me sitting down with our primary investors and talking about what's going on within Easy Allies. And so there are some of the allies that spend more time in our forums than most, and so those are the characters, if you will, the allies that will go and represent us and continue the conversation there. And so I try to represent Patreon with the help of Bloodworth and Ben and the others as much as I can. But that's why the interest is there. Doesn't mean it's the best solution. Doesn't mean your comment's going to make it through. Brandon K. Gann, outside of submitting questions or comments for content on Patreon, I stick to the forums, and today I realized that different allies populate the different platforms. Mr. Moore and Bloodworth here on Patreon, Mr. Bloodworth in the forums, etc. I understand Bloodworth's everywhere. I understand everyone is busy with all the work, but in your case specifically, what area do you wish you could visit more often and engage with the community? The EZA subreddit, the forums, more time on social media, anywhere else, or not at all? Probably social media, which is not the answer that you all want to hear. You know, I should be on Patreon more, I should be in our forums more. I should be on Reddit, period. I've never been a Reddit person. I've read things on Reddit, but they've always been linked from other places. I've never, ever just gone to Reddit. I don't know what that's like. So that's a flaw with me. But we all have our weird little sticks, like things that we don't like to do and things that we're not, you know, good at. But Twitter, probably. Just because I spend just enough time on Twitter that I probably should spend just a little more time actively commenting about things. I was good and I tweeted out today the Cup of Jones was starting for everybody that follows us at Easy Allies, which is slowly overtaking me. If it already hasn't, I believe Easy Allies Twitter will have more followers than me, which is fantastic. Just like Game Trailers, I hope Easy Allies just, you know, goes off and becomes its own thing, and I'll just be on some park bench feeding pigeons someday. But yeah, there are just people, Daniel Dwyer, you know, Greg Miller, Andrea Renee, especially Andrea Renee's gift game is very strong. But people are just better on social media than I am, and so I wish I was better. I wish it's energy. I mean, it's just the energy and forethought, you know, just having the idea beforehand to set up all that stuff. But all the places, anywhere else, everywhere. I wish I had more exposure. That's always been, since the old days of Game Trailers, that's been my kryptonite. That's been my Achilles heel, is favoring production over the connection with the people I'm producing the stuff for. And I am so lucky, like you said, to have Ben Moore, to have Bloodworth, to have Ian in a lot of ways on social media. Ian, in the past, has addressed a lot of things. Damiani is really in touch with a lot of the people that are trying to get a hold of us, and so I would be lost without all of them. My solo Patreon would be bad. Andrew left. What was Brandon Jones's favorite movie of 2017 and why? Get Out, definitely. And why? Get Out's a horror movie. Get Out is a very dramatic, spooky movie, and Get Out is a very, you don't want Get Out spoiled. You want to go into Get Out not knowing stuff. Although even if you know the stuff that happens in Get Out, it's pretty awesome on the second viewing, which I did also in 2017. Get Out just has everything I want from any movie. Really good story, really compelling. Holds up on more than one viewing. Clever writing, which again really shows through on that second viewing of you realizing like all these signals, all these triggers that were happening that I was totally missing. And some of the best performances. There's a lady who plays their maid at the house who has the best scene in 2017. Out of anything emotionally that I saw actors go for in 2017, that was it. That was the gold medal. And it's just good. It was good horror. I mean, you've heard me Possibly. If you haven't, I complain about horror a lot. I think modern horror is very bad. I think it's falling behind a lot of other genres. I think, like, you know, especially like comic book movies kicking ass, dramas kicking ass, comedies are really, really good. Animation is, you know, blowing up, is bigger than ever. You know, they have like so many people that are nominated for Academy. The Oscars came out for Best Animated Film. I haven't seen Coco. Apparently Coco is really good. But all these genres doing really great and really inventive things. And horror is just like, horror just hit this cheesy note and it's just holding it, where it's like bad writing, bad acting, great premise, great effects, great style, great, you know, setup. Usually the 20 minutes of every horror movie nowadays are fantastic. And then the last hour is just like, ugh. And we're like, you can get stuff like Cloverfield Lane, or in some ways Get Out, that are more drama than horror. I mean, like Get Out, I could see people arguing that Get Out is more of a thriller than a horror film. There is some gore in it. But, they're just bad. Most of them are just bad. They're just, maybe it was Saw. It's just kind of Saw created this big, you know, boulder in the middle of the lake, and everything. We're seeing the ripples from it, and hopefully Get Out is a sign of things to come. But if you like all those movies, Huber loves them. I mean, Huber likes most of the horror movies that I don't like. So there you go, Easy Allies. It's this is Cup of Jones. So I'm gonna tell it like it is. It Follows was good. Did I see the Slender Man trailer? Yeah, that looks. The Slender Man trailer was like 80% sound effects. It Follows is good. It Follows is again, great premise. Very, very smart. Oh, and the Witch, the Wailing was good. Ibrahim Sozer, what's your ideal Robin? We know you're Batman. How does Bruce Wayne handle seeing the death of the Flying Graysons? What happens to old Bruce? There's a lot going on here. Well, there's many Robins. I like the concept that there's many Robins. I like all of the Robins ending poorly, whether they leave or die or something happens. Spoilers, the second Robin, Jason Todd, gets blown up. Well, I mean, if you stick with it, I guess he comes back. But according to Batman thinks he dies, so I guess that's tragic enough. Dick Grayson, I was thinking about this, Ibrahim, before the stream today, and I was like, yeah, I don't think about Robin a lot. Like, what I don't like in Batman is when you create too much connective tissue between things, when you're just like, oh, Joker killed his parents, and it's like, no, some other guy did. Like, oh yeah, you know, like Riddler created Freeze or whatever. Like anything where you're like, this villain is directly responsible for this thing this other villain did. There's millions of people that live in Gotham, so it's just like, I think you can separate these stories and just create more characters, especially for a world that you want to go on for years and years and years. You need to, and we're actually, somebody asks about Hush later on, and that's one of the things I love about Hush, is that it like stretches things out. So I don't necessarily love the idea that Bruce was at the circus when Dick's parents died. But then again, why would Bruce care? And I wonder if maybe Alfred got involved, and Alfred was like, hey, and just kind of like got the newspaper and kind of slid it in front of Bruce and was like, sucks for that kid, right? Like that kid, that athletically, you know, gifted child that seems down on his luck and needs a place to live. What happens to old Bruce? I imagine when Bruce Wayne dies, nobody knows. Like, it's the kind of thing where, like, if you were to ask Superman, who clearly outlives Bruce, be like, hey, Superman, what happened to Bruce? And he'd be like, I don't know. Like, he's probably dead, because otherwise he'd be 115, but I wasn't there when he died. I never heard, you know. I work with people that work with him. They don't tell me. And he just kind of, yeah, maybe he's still around. I don't know. I could see him passing it on to somebody else, but definitely old Bruce stays with it forever, whether he's like in the suit. He still, you know, guides other people, and I don't know about... It sucks because Batman Beyond is kind of its own self-contained thing, but Batman Beyond was never like accepted. We never saw like a Batman Beyond variant in the comics, I don't think. That's like actually considered like part of, you know, the Batman lore. But yeah, there's your Robin talk, and Tim Drake is my favorite Robin. Daniel Garza Andrade. Daniel Garza Andrade. Where can we see these new photos that you have shared? One via Twitter and the other on the Twitch schedule. I don't know what you're talking about. Try again, one more time. Next week, clarify. Where can we see those new photos that you have shared, one via Twitter and the other on the Twitch schedule? By you, I'm guessing Easy Allies. And I didn't share those, so I don't know. Maybe we can't. Huber going on Kind of Funny Games Daily. Yeah, we can talk about it. I was actually going to message. Maybe we can. Yeah, I'll mention that in the beginning, or I should have mentioned that in the beginning. Huber's going to be on Kind of Funny on Thursday. We're flying him up to be with a bunch of stuff that day with Kind of Funny. So yay! Yeah, sorry, Daniel. I wasn't sure when they were going to start promoting that, so. Yeah, Jean-Paul Valley ain't my Batman. Yeah, there's lots of different Batmen. You gotta let the concept go of Batman. Like, that's one thing I really like about Batman Begins is the way they talk about Batman as myth, you know, as a tool, as a legend, and so it's cool to think of him kind of like Ra's al Ghul, the way that's done in the movie. Rise Simmons, thank you for acknowledging that people outside of the US in very different time zones hardly ever get to watch your streams live. It's nice to know you're aware of your international audience's disadvantage in interacting with you, even if the US EZA community frequently overlooks it. So you've been called out by Rise Simmons, EZA community from the United States, with your cocky watching of our live stuff, and your brazen misunderstanding of how difficult it is for people in other parts of the world to watch stuff that we do. Yeah, we got the Olympics going on, so that's at weird hours. I remember back in the day, I miss having roommates. I mean, I technically have a roommate now because I'm married, but I miss having a roommate named Clarence who was obsessed with the World Cup, and whenever the World Cup would happen, he would wake us all up at like 3 in the morning, and we'd all watch the World Cup. And I missed that. That was really great. It's nice not really having... It's like we were talking about randos a couple weeks back, and like how I love randos. I love finding out about things that I didn't know. I love discovering something and then finding out millions of people have known about it for years. So yeah, things like that are fun. But hopefully you don't have to get up at 3 in the morning to watch our stuff. That's something to keep in mind. It's why we do our community showcase earlier. Anytime we do something that's kind of all hands on deck, we do our Tuesday night group streams mostly for Ian and Dawn and myself. Like anybody that's working during the day that prefers that to be at night, that works out best for us because that's our general all hands thing. But anytime we do something all hands, meaning this is the showcase, this is Cup of Jones, this is something that directly works through Patreon, so we need to be here at Patreon for it. We try to do that. I believe Blood Pact is earlier in the day as well, so we try to do those things early. Obviously, we can do more. Pawn, I had a conversation with my friends about the Solo movie and was wondering what a hardcore Star Wars, specifically a Han Solo fan such as yourself, feels. We talked about last week a little bit. Let's just pretend we saw the movie, the entire film was trash. Worst Star Wars movie yet, except for one part, the Kessel Run. Let's say that was the best 10 to 15 minutes you've ever spent in a movie theater. Would that be enough for you to say you enjoyed that movie? Definitely. 2 words, pod race. The pod race is my favorite part of the of episode 1. There are some parts that are cool with Qui-Gon. I know you're gonna say the mall fight, but the mall fight I've seen too many times now. I've memorized it, and so it just doesn't hit. It doesn't have any impact. And man, by the time you get to that point, if you watch that Hall of Phantom Menace, by the time you get there, you're so beat. But the movie hasn't upset me enough by the time we get to the pod race for me to enjoy it. And the sound design and the all of the aliens, like the way, kind of reminds me of good old Star Wars, where you'd like get introduced to an alien character. You'd see someone in the cantina, or you'd see someone in Jabba's palace. You'd be like, "Who's that guy?" And there's not a lot of that in the beginning of Phantom Menace. So yeah, if the Kessel Run's great, I think there's going to be really good stuff. I think Glover looks amazing. I think. All of his compatriots talk about cool characters. All of his like crew that Han Solo goes with looks pretty neat. I'm curious. I think that's ultimately the end of the day. Like, if I wasn't curious, if I was like, boy, I don't care. And a lot of people have said that, and I hear ya. I see where you're coming from by not, being into the Han Solo movie. But like you're saying, as a hardcore Star Wars, specifically a Han Solo fan, I'm curious. Ty Lloyd, what do you usually order at McDonald's? Big Mac, bottle of water. Kevin, have you considered changing what your current 45K goal is, as it doesn't seem to be inspiring anyone to donate additional revenue? Maybe replace it with a 15-minute scripted show comedy skit, whatever you guys want to do. I'm just suggesting aiming for something that has more universal appeal and is more unique, as the internet is already full of trailer analysis breakdowns. Is it? Is it? It's full of trailer breakdowns. and it's full of trailer analysis. I think it's tough to call it trailer analysis because it's really movie analysis or game analysis, because they're looking at something and being like, ooh, what does that mean? Let's look at this. Like 99% of the videos that are made around trailers are like, can I predict? Can I be right about this? You know, can I be like the Nostradamus of game marketing? Can I look at a game and be like, oh, he's got that weapon. You know what that means? You see all the thumbnails where they're like, they circle something. And I'm like, what? And I'm like, why did they circle that building? Then I watch the video and I'm like, they didn't say anything about that building. And it's like, oh, they just circled the building because it looked cool for the thumbnail. But the actual analysis of the trailer itself as an art form in and of itself is rare. I will posit. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe somebody can correct me in chat. But that's not the point. Because the point is, maybe we need to change our 45K goal, and we might. It needs to be something big. I will say that part of putting that at the 45K goal, or having that always kind of as one of the next carrots for us to dangle, is, and maybe we should change the 45K goal and drop Trailer Jones back down to 44. Because I think it was at 44. Maybe we were 45 briefly. It all seems like a blur. A lot of people contact me and ask me to score trailers. A lot of people reach out to me. It was a show that I had, and so that is how we have steered Easy Allies through our first 2 years of operation. Largely is to try to recreate, or at least call upon, a lot of the memories that we had at Game Trailers and things that we did right then that we can possibly do now, especially if we are given more resources, especially as we get better and better at our job. That, hey, maybe we can do this now that we used to do, that people liked, and we should do again. So that's where that comes from. That, obviously, it being a show that we used to do, being something that's close to my heart, and being something that I frequently get, although it happens less and less, that I frequently get asked to do on social media, like, hey, this trailer came out, what do you think? And I try to weigh in so many characters. But you're right. There are definitely 45K goals. I'll tell you this as a fact. There are 45K goals we could put out that are more attractive than Trailer Jones. For sure. And that's something that we should consider. That is something that we did talk about when 2018 began. And we are definitely, especially coming up to our 2-year anniversary, we're definitely reevaluating our goals if there's anything else that we can do. It's been a month since we got together and talked about 2018, so it's a good opportunity tonight or possibly next week. Or right now, darn it, to review a lot of the things we talked about and see 1 month later where we're at and what we still want to do. Mr. M, just got a bit of feedback regarding your recent multiplayer streams. For the love of God, please do more of these. Please, please find a way to make the audio of the other allies in said videos not be bad. Please, please start recording each person's perspective, and pretty please give that footage to someone to get them to edit together Kyle's Digimon video style. You're sitting on a gold mine with those streams, and I'd be happy beyond belief if we could get those sorts of videos even once a fortnight, 3 weeks, month, whatever. Do you ever drink that, and did you ever drink that mango nectar I told you to drink? If it required me to go purchase it, no. If you sent it, maybe. It's weird to see Fortnite spelled correctly. I hear you. Yes, we want to. We plan to. Notice I didn't say the word promise, because a lot of that has to do with the right game for it and the right game. I can't tell you what game, but like this happens all the time. I just saw a game in Slack that was offered up. Both Huber and Ben were like, I would love to, but I can't. I'm doing too much stuff. And so we have to find that right game that, because if we're working on a review, we wouldn't have time for that. I'm planning on reviewing Metal Gear Survive when it comes out on the 20th this month. That is in a week? Yeah, it's in exactly a week. It'll come out the day. I might be a little tired next week. I might not do a Cup of Jones next week if it comes out. Actually, I probably won't. To be honest, we haven't broken our stride for 2018 yet, but it might be time to do that next week because, heck, I might just stream Metal Gear Survive. But I want to review it, but I don't know. And so I want to stream it, but I don't know if that stream eventually would become the video that you're talking about. And so, because specifically what you're talking about is a new type of preview that we want to do, that we're experimenting with, where we stream something and then instead of writing a script and producing that, we just cut down that stream. And that's something as Ben and Huber and hopefully some of the other allies that stream are interested in maybe learning editing at the same time. I encourage you to watch the most recent episode of Easy Update where Ian teaches Huber how to edit. I could probably learn a thing or two by watching it. I haven't seen it yet. but that they can do that themselves, that Huber can stream something and then cut that down and then post that himself. Make the thumbnail, one-stop shop. And it's a much easier thing to do than to write a script, have me read it, have somebody edit it, and then post it, wait for the person to approve it, and so on and so forth. So, yes, we should do that. In terms of what, I think the other point that you're making, which is we want to experiment more with having you hear and see multiple people. And yeah, improving that. I think weekly hunts might be the catalyst for that, or might be a good place to start experimenting with that. Anytime you get Ian Hank involved in something, he's just got to improve the production value of it. So, or not, blatantly. But yeah, that would be a fun place. And obviously Sea of Thieves coming next month. That would be a fun time to experiment with that. We might do Sea of Thieves on Mixer, just to be Microsoft about it. Diamond Crusader, imagine the allies as fruits. What kind of fruit are the allies? I don't know. I'm not a food person. Diamond Crusader, you ventured into soft comment territory. I don't know. The only one I can think of is like Dawn. Like Dawn would be like a date or something. You know, Dawn would be something exotic. Something that something you would find in like a smoky room in like a bowl, like a glass bowl on the table. Something that somebody with a lot of rings on his finger would like grab one and be like, "You want one of these?" Something like that. The rest, I don't know. Bloodworth would probably be a banana because it's reliable. You know, I mean, obviously only for a couple days, but then you just get a new banana, which has nothing to do with Bloodworth. But and just bananas are great. I just think bananas are super cool. I think you just look at the way things happened with the design of the planet, however that happened, and you look at bananas and you're like, it's a good idea, bananas. Logan Taz, what do you think of Batman's villain? The Batman villain, Hush. Personally, he's one of my favorite B villains. B villain, eh? Oof. B villain. I don't know. Probably B. Depends on how big B is. Is that a big B? Yeah, Hush is pretty great. Hush, as we were talking about earlier, one of the great things about Hush is he kind of weaves through everything. He's kind of, he works with everybody, and and it's not forced. So it's done in a way where it recognizes, no, all of these people were still around. Riddler was, still Riddler and Joker and everybody. But what if this one other character was there and was, had this relationship with Bruce, but didn't necessarily lead to everything. It wasn't like, oh, everything was because of this guy. I can't remember Hush's actual name off the top of my head. But it was a very personal story, and I think it's great when you have these kind of one-off events in the DC universe. It's good for them to either be so fantastical that it's like, okay, this is like Batman, becoming a vampire. It's something in another dimension or another universe of DC. But for something like this, I just loved what a personal story it was, and I think that's how why I was so surprised when I first read it. That I did not see that coming, but. Yeah, I think functionally, Hush isn't my favorite, just like style-wise. He kind of reminds me more of like Black Mask. He's kind of more of like the actual like gangster versions of, and I think Joker definitely fits that too. The Joker wears a suit and shoots a gun, like Joker's a gangster. But he's definitely more into that category. But yeah, I guess he's B minus. Just because he came in late to the party. There are B villains that were created, 20, 30 years before Hush. Kif, EZA has grown into a multinational conglomerate. Who do you consider acquiring? Patreon. Dr. Ice, I was listening to the latest Frame Trap, and I literally just thought of that. Before I was like, Netflix, I guess? I don't know. But clearly Patreon. Oh, and I would also buy a theater in Topanga Canyon in Los Angeles. This is one of those things that I'm just like, I want to buy that. There's a theater in Topanga Canyon that is built into the mountain where they do lots of Shakespeare and crazy productions, and it's run by a bunch of people that I think could do a better job at advertising and production of their shows, and just kind of the way the whole place is run. And it's a neat location, but it's one that I'm just like, God, I wish I could just drop $100,000 on this place and just update the bathrooms and make the seats a little more comfortable and just make the venue cool, because I love live theater, and it's enticing to own a venue. It'd be fun to own like a movie theater and have screenings and stuff. It'd be fun for if like Easy Allies owned a movie theater and like once a week everybody in LA we could like get together and like watch, you know, play video games on a big screen or something. Yeah, that too. I would buy a movie theater and we would do that. I'd buy the Cinerama Dome. We play Mario Kart IMAX. Dr. Ice. I was listening to the latest Frame Trap and I had an idea what I thought would be cool and I wanted your thoughts on it. During the Hatake, and I love he questions the spelling. Spelling? Hatake. So you spelled it correctly. Huber mentions how difficult it can be to try to balance your time with reviews due to embargoes, missing review codes, and other variables that might impede on the review process. He also mentions how impossible it is to review every game that ever gets released. It's a completely understandable predicament I'm sure you all face, not just Huber. What if you guys had a poll system? Much like you do with group streams, that have patrons vote a month or months ahead of time on what games they would like to see covered in a review, or possibly other things, way we cover stuff. It'd be a neat way to include patrons in the review process. It would allow you to refine the pool of games you may consider reviewing to just the ones you know your viewers care most about, and the ones you care about, and also give you insight as to which games would be appropriate for previews or a don't skip. The ones that get high votes would be reviewed, and the honorable mentions would make for some great don't skips. You know, we have to play it before we know you should not skip it. There would have to be a chance for each ally to review games they want to play as well, of course. You guys are gamers too, and I think you care about your opinions on the games we're into and the games you're into. A smaller version of this idea would be to have one review a month that is Patreon selected, or maybe a new tier. Oh, this sounds very stressful. It seems like a pretty stressful part of the job, juggling people's expectations with reality and trying to make it as smooth a transition as possible. Maybe some more rigid structure would help take some pressure off. Apparently we're mowing the lawn right now. No, Dr. Ice. No. I'm all a fan of. I'm a fan of polls. I wish there were ways we can integrate more polls. We do have a lot of patron involvement, I think, right now. I think we're doing pretty good. I wouldn't say we've hit the saturation point with the rest of the allies as far as they're concerned, but I think we've definitely we're definitely at that point where we're comfortable with the amount of things that patrons directly control. I'm just speaking for myself in this. I do not have the other allies around. I have not checked within with this question in particular, but what we review is a very personal process. That might make you roll your eyes. I get it. Might be like, oh, come on, it's just a game. Like, you should be able to, you know, people at IGN don't have a choice, you know, like if you're at IGN or GameSpot or Game Informer, like I bet, you know, or EGM, I bet you just like are lucky to have a job and are lucky to get stuff thrown at you and you're just like, okay, this weird game. Those actually make for some fun stories where Damiani will say like, ooh, I remember when Shane just threw that game at me and forced me to review it. But forced me to do something is not the language that I think creates compelling podcast-esque content here at Easy Allies. We don't get good stuff out of... I don't get good stuff. As the editor-in-chief, as somebody who produces a lot of the, you know, segments that we do, I don't get good work out of those boys if I do this. You know, like, if they say they're going to do something and I go, okay, we'll do it, and then a month goes by and they haven't done it, then we can crack the whip. Then we can be like, hey, come on, like, you said you were going to do that, what's going on? Either say you're not going to do it or poop or get off the pot. Poop or get off the pot completely distracted me. So if people are getting in and reviewing something, they need to want to do that. Or they need to be trepidatious about it. Or they need to know, no, I'm not going to review that. I don't want to. I don't think I'm a good person to review that. A lot of times, you know, when someone like Huber is reviewing Evil Within 2, or I'm reviewing Red Dead Redemption, or Ben's reviewing Persona, and you're like, whoa, that person really likes that. Is that a really impartial person to review that? That kind of works both ways, where a lot of us will step away from a project because we realize I'm not the best person to review that. I actually just messaged out last night and checked in with some people for one of the games coming up where I'm like, am I reviewing that? Like, it's good to just kind of know a couple months in advance because then it kind of, you know, restructures what my brain thinks about that game. So if we had some kind of poll thing and that poll was going to say, hey, you know, Cooking Mama 8, and we're like, all right, like throw that at somebody like that. that person's not going to have fun making that video. That's not that video. That script's not going to come from the heart. It's not going to be something that we get behind enthusiastically. And we only have so much time to produce the stuff that we do for Easy Allies. Why not be enthusiastic about everything you're doing? You've seen us cancel stuff. You've seen us scale stuff back. A lot of times that's in the interest of, we don't want to do that anymore. And you've seen an evolution of things that like are similar to what you're talking about, where the group stream selection committee, how that's changed over time, and how we are definitely down to evolve that in the future. So sorry to give you the hard no, but I don't want that to happen. Again, I can't speak for the rest of the allies, but I don't want that to happen enough that I'd be a big old stink about it. Lelor, maybe Lelor. I have a suggestion for the Easy Allies podcast. How about letting the patrons recommend the weekly goals? Again, patrons, okay, number one, patrons send their suggestions via a central post on Patreon or some other means. A patron can suggest as many goals as they want, as many times they want. 2, suggestions are pooled, and the panel could pick from this pool at the beginning of the podcast. The panel may see what's in the pool because the pick will be random blind anyway. Kind of like when Kyle was picking songs from a pool during Bosman v. Wozniak 3. Bosman v. Wozniak. Can you imagine if there were 3 Bosman v. Wozniak seasons? The goals should be kept secret from each other and the audience, maybe, and will be revealed at the end during the usual time when Kyle checks up on the goals. The goal and the patron who suggested it would be revealed. Number 4. Patrons' suggested goals may not be mean-spirited. It's all about love and respect, after all. 5. The pool may be purged weekly or just let it grow and purge when it becomes too large to manage. 6. Goals already picked should be removed from the pool, although my OC-ness would prefer you keep a record of goals picked. 7. Maybe at the end of the quarter year, the one who achieved the most goals wins a prize or something. I will bring that up with Kyle. It's the best I can do. It's Kyle's show. I can only suggest things. Wow. I kind of like coming up with a goal. I honestly think, I haven't asked him this, but I honestly think Kyle has come up with some of those goals that moment. Like I think Kyle is testing himself in a lot of ways with his improv skills. I think about my goal when my butt hits that chair. When I sit down, I go, oh, right, goals. I think there's only a couple goals. Whenever you see me do a silly voice, I usually think of that a couple days in advance for the podcast halftime. Thank goodness we have patient podcast producers that let me do silly voices every now and then. Because you should, right? Like if you give us $500 and we do $150 a pop for podcast mention, I'm like, haha, I'm Kermit. And you're like, I gave you $150. Yeah, oof, I don't know. I'll suggest it, but oof, a lot of work. But it's fun. Reminds me of kind of what I want from Werehogs. You know, like I definitely want there to be a rule set. I want all of this to be incorporated in some way. If someone who wasn't the 9 existing Easy Allies could manage what you're talking about, that'd be great. That worked with us. That wasn't just a patron. The Champ. I was wondering if any of the allies ever thought about competing at EVO. What if the allies have a few fighting game tournaments and the overall winner will be sent to EVO to compete? I know the allies aren't that good in fighting games, but just the experience would be interesting. Maybe an easy updated EVO. An easy updated EVO I think would be lovely. EVO exists on the periphery. There's there's one of these things that I just like stare at longingly in the distance with a tear in my eye. Like I'm Luke on Tatooine, and instead of the Twin Suns, it's like GDC and EVO and PAX East and Gamescom and just like all these events, and I'm like, meh. And everybody, we've had people talk about in the past. They're like, you should have, you mentioned that you want to get a camera. You should have a fundraiser for the camera. You mentioned that you want to go to Gamescom or go to this event. You should have a fundraiser for that event. And there's only so often, I think, that we want to be careful with having these moments where like, give me money, because we say that pretty much every day. We definitely say that at the beginning of every month when Patreon comes to collect. But it's something we're a little nervous about doing too much. And so it sucks that events like that, I know Dallin's going to kill me because I always make promises. I shouldn't, but I have previously in the past made promises that I was going to go to PAX East, and I can't afford it, can't do it. So I'm in trouble. But this would be great. The easy updated EVO, I think, is the best thing about that. I think Ben would be good for a fighting competition. I think I can see Damiani potentially going to a fighting competition. That's about it. I think that's it. There you go. I think those are the only 2 people currently employed at Easy Allies that would be even remotely competent at an Evo competition. Because that's the thing. If we had a gaming tournament and the overall winner would be sent to Evo, it'd be Damiani or Ben. So let's just get that. Maybe Huber in a pinch. Maybe like a Huber upset, but I doubt it. I highly doubt it. Quaznarg. I've been noticing a lot of the comments recently have the same tone. Many of them talk about the production quality of your shows. One of my favorite aspects of EZA is the scrappy nature that comes with a group of dedicated people just doing what they love. The supposed quote-unquote low quality of some of your streams and podcasts are part of what makes the show charming. I love when Kyle has to remind Damiani to talk into the mic, or when the audio levels are off at the start of the stream and they have to be fixed, or that you can tell the whole thing is being recorded in a garage. In fact, I worry that when you get to that studio goal, you will lose some of the charm that I love so much. But I trust you guys. It'll be fun seeing that studio come to fruition. Yes, Quaznarg did not ask a question, but I liked the comment. I like being told that what we do wrong is what people like about us. It's comments like that that help me get through a busy day like today. Thank you so much, Quaznarg. We really, really don't deserve you. You represent a percentage, I think not a majority for sure, but there is a group that likes the quote-unquote low production values of Easy Allies. But I think that's part of what it is. Like, I think part of what a studio represents, and this is, again, one of the things that's weird about Easy Allies is that I don't have the mentality of getting in my car and going somewhere for Easy Allies. I never do that. I do that to go get our mail. I do that to run errands. I do that to go to like Guitar Center or you know, the market. But like, I've never gone somewhere to like shoot something. I think maybe like once or twice I've met some of the allies specifically somewhere. A lot of times we just meet here, and so there's this whole mentality of like going somewhere to do a production. And I think a lot of what you're seeing is in the lapses, and I know this can be frustrating, where it's like, come on guys, make a list, you know, like check this stuff off, you know, do the stuff correctly. A lot of what we do is tiring, and a lot of what we do, no matter what, even at our best, even if we strive to be the best that we possibly can, are not as good as a lot of our competitors. They're not as good as a lot of the people that are producing stuff in the video game space. And so a lot of what you see when it's just like, oh, we fumbled there, sorry, it's us just giving ourselves a break, you know, giving ourselves, just letting ourselves relax enough that like, oh yeah, you know, and it's interesting, a lot of times we can really focus on one thing. Like Ian's been doing some audio tests lately, and there was one stream where like for an hour we checked the audio, and I wasn't even there. I think I was taking a nap or something, or I was working on something inside, and then I came out, and Ian and Damiani and Kyle and Blood and like they're all doing audio tests, and because we're trying to set up things that we might not have, I don't do when I do Cup of Jones, but we might set up for group streams and for other events. It's gonna be perfect. It's not great when we play games because the audio between that feed and stuff gets messed up, but it's perfect for E3, and that's one thing I'm excited about. And like whenever we meet to do reactions to stuff, because as long as we don't have a game input, we can regulate. You know, we can make the quiet stuff louder and the loud stuff quieter, and balance everything out, or at least make attempts at doing that. And we only meet every Tuesday, so every Tuesday is like an experiment to try different things. And so sometimes it takes months for us to figure out the model that we like, but we just don't get together that often because Easy Allies operates the way it does. And so we spent an hour doing that, and then started the stream, and never set up the mic for Damiani. So it's like, when you're focusing on one thing, sometimes other things can kind of get blurry. Yeah, so I don't know if that's the thing I wanted to say. I don't know if that answered your question. But, oh, Quaznarg was just being nice. But yeah, that's one opinion. If your opinion is on the other end of the spectrum, you are also heard. Stephen Beaumont, 3 questions for this week. Using your head and not your heart, which Rockstar game do you think will enter the Hall of Greats first? In my opinion, San Andreas is the best, but I would back Vice City, followed closely by Red Dead Redemption for the least restraint entrance. Question 2, probably Red Dead. I think Red Dead's the biggest crowd pleaser. I think GTA is kind of this like, because I think Red Dead has heart. GTA 4's got a little bit of heart. 3's got heart. Vice City ain't got no heart. Vice City is heartless. Vice City is depraved. But it's great. It's the 80s. It's you're in this absolute just cesspool of violence and greed, and but it's great. But yeah, Tommy Vercetti is not like, hey, you know, I want to be a nice guy. No, Tommy Vercetti is bad guy. And GTA 3 doesn't have a lot of heart just because it's an old-looking game, an old-feeling game, and the main character doesn't even talk. But what's his name in Carl from San Andreas. I can't remember his name, but he's got heart. Red Dead's got a lot of heart from a lot of characters, and it's just very honest and less, I think, hokey, less, it's playful, less goofy, I guess, than the other GTA games. And so I think that's why it's probably the biggest crowd pleaser amongst the allies. Like, if you're Don Casanova and you don't play GTA games a lot, I don't know, maybe he does, Red Dead's probably the one from a distance that you look at and go, yeah. You do the Robert Redford to Red Dead. So yeah, probably Red Dead. Question 2. Why do Americans say tuna fish when what other tuna would you confuse it with? Tuna fish is like a specific type of the way tuna is prepared. Tuna fish is not what we say about tuna. Like, if you caught if I saw like a tuna on a boat, I wouldn't be like, oh, it's a tuna fish. I'd be like, oh, it's a tuna, like a halibut or a salmon. If I go to a sushi restaurant and order tuna sushi or tuna sashimi, I get tuna. I don't, or toro? Is it toro? I think it's called toro. Maybe. Can I speak Japanese? So yeah, tuna fish is like a type of sandwich, or it's like a type of something you can get in cans. It's like a way tuna is prepared. I believe, again, not a food person, as we've established. In this episode, question 3, you have been so good to us with Weekly Cup of Joneses. Do you feel any fatigue? I will next week when I have to review or stream or whatever Metal Gear Survive. So yeah, I might bow out next week. Is the future Cup of Jones weekly? Or at some point would it become monthly? At some point. It ends. All things end. I can't do it forever. I'll do it for decades if I can, but I don't know. I can't take the future Cup of Jones. This is pretty great, though. I'm cozy with doing weekly. Weekly for a few years, at least. David Pearson, question. I like the people have to frame the question. Do you have a favorite brewing method for coffee, whether making it yourself or having it made for you in a cafe, for example? Oh, I like how that was an example. Having it made for me is definitely my favorite. Having anything that I can eat or drink made for me is the best. AeroPress, Cafetier, Espresso Machine, V60, Turkish, Pour Over, etc. V60? I don't even know what half of those things are. Keep up the good work, and Duty Now for year 3. Duty Now. Wow, David, lots of references here. I don't speak your language. Yeah, make things for me. Robert I saw Cabaret last night, and during the Perfectly Marvelous number, I couldn't help picturing you and Amanda performing it together. If ever you two feel like getting musically silly on camera, I hope you will give consideration to performing the number. Aw. Feel free to make this a one-time Patreon stretch goal to gauge interest. Maybe I'm alone encouraging this. Amanda and I performed once. I'm so happy that we did this because I used to do a lot of musicals. Amanda didn't. Amanda does a lot of improv musical stuff now and a lot of improv short format, or long form narrative improv. But we did get up and we sang a song together. We sang Unworthy of Your Love from Assassins, which is sung by the characters of Lynette Squeaky Fromm and John Hinckley. Lynette Fromm tried to kill Gerald Ford, and John Hinckley tried to kill Ronald Reagan. And Stephen Sondheim wrote a musical about them, and all of the other assassins. And they sing a song because Lynette Fromm loved Charlie Manson and wanted... Charlie Manson's on my brain because I just finished Mindhunters, which is really good on Netflix. But Charlie Manson, she wanted to kill Gerald Ford and then say that she did it for Charlie Manson so that Charlie Manson would then have to be brought into the trial. And she was convinced that if Charlie Manson was brought into trial and people could see him, could see him speak and see him articulate why the president needed to die or why he likes Squeaky Fromm or why he is the way he is, that he would save the world, that he would, everyone would see him for like she saw him. She was crazy. John Hinckley was also crazy. John Hinckley tried to kill Ronald Reagan, hit him, seriously injured him. Lynette, I don't even think got even close to Gerald Ford, but and he was obsessed with Jodie Foster, who is in the film Taxi Driver. If you're a fan of Jodie Foster's later work, I encourage you to go watch the movie Taxi Driver. It's fascinating because she is very, very young, and it was extremely creepy for Hinckley to be as into her as he was. And I had a picture that I would look at in the song that I would hold up that I had laminated of her in Taxi Driver, and man, was that weird, singing Unworthy of Your Love to a picture of a very, very young Jodie Foster. But long story short, Amanda and I, for a review that she did for a theater company she used to be into, we did a review called Murder Murder, Mayhem, and Mischief, I think. And it was stuff from Sweeney Todd and from Pippin and from Assassins and from anything that was like dark and creepy. We could kind of bring to it what we wanted to do. And I played Hinckley when I was in college, and I just have all of Assassins memorized because it's one of my favorite shows. And Amanda was like, "Oh, I'll learn the other thing. We'll perform it on stage." So we performed that on stage, and that was fun. So I'm happy that we did that once. But I almost was in Cabaret. I had a friend of mine that was staging Cabaret in college, and it was one of those things where it was a student production, and so people would submit to the teacher the production that they wanted to do, and instead of Cabaret, they picked She Loves Me. And She Loves Me is a cute show. I played Kodai in She Loves Me. He's like the villain. It's one of the only times I've played a villain. I guess you could maybe consider Cinderella's prince from Into the Woods kind of a villain. But he's certainly not a nice guy. But She Loves Me is nice. It's fun. I would love to be George in She Loves Me, but Cabaret's a better show. And almost had it. So I could have sent you a link to me performing that had She Loves Me hadn't won. Rar, formerly Robert, which is my middle name, have notifications set up to email me every time a new post in the Easy Allies Patreon because I love keeping up with everything that gets posted here. I was wondering, though, I just talked a lot and didn't look at chat. I want to make sure. Cool. Mindhunter fan. Samuel likes Mindhunter. I would love keeping up everything that gets posted here. I was wondering, though, would it be possible to post the audio and video posts together instead of two separate posts, or is there a technical reason this needs to be done? I understand posting separately if there's a delay on one of those versions, that's why I do it for Cup of Jones, but often they're posted one after the other, and it sends me 2 emails and 2 notifications through the Patreon app. Bloodworth says it better than I ever could. Unfortunately, it's part of the technical limitations of how Patreon is designed. We can choose an audio post, which creates the patron-only RSS feed, or a video post, live stream post, text post, image post, etc. They're each very distinct and separate. Sorry, but again, we're streaming now, which we couldn't do before when we started Easy Allies, so maybe that's functionality that they add down the road. Please, Patreon, please. Carl Williams, since my January community showcase post had disappeared before the stream and probably wasn't read, if that ever happens, if you ever lose a Cup of Jones post, if you ever lose a community showcase post, feel free to repost either in community showcase or throw it to me here on Cup of Jones, or message it to me, or email it to me, or DM it to me on Twitter. Let me know, and it'll get picked up. I wanted to give a short version of what I've been playing recently. I've been into Fortnite Battle Royale, given since I saw portions of it being played at PSX back in December. Awesome. The game is very fun, with interesting strategic elements in terms of building material. Interesting strategic elements in terms of building material is, gets me hot in the collar. I've even gotten a few wins, which is awesome. Nice. And while it can be frustrating sometimes, I'm glad to have found something that gives Final Fantasy XIV a run for its money and occupying my playtime. Also nice. Speaking of Final Fantasy XIV, the new story patch for Stormblood has been out for a while, and I've barely scratched the surface. Currently, I'm only focusing on the next installment of the 8-man raid, which features his bosses from Final Fantasy VI, I know, including the Phantom Train and of course Kefka. I've already completed the raid's normal mode, and will focus on the raid's Savage mode. I've never played Final Fantasy VI. Wow, that's awesome that you're moving on to Savage mode. I've never played Final Fantasy VI, so getting the opportunity to fight Kefka in his final form with Dancing Mad playing in the background would be quite the honor. His final form is only accessible in Savage mode. How many modes are there in 14? Is it just normal and Savage, or is there like one past that? And that is it for what I played in January. As you can see, it would have appealed to both you and Damiani, and hearing both of your comments would have been a treat. Well, I just talked to my friend Todd, my longtime friend who co-wrote the Final Fantasy Retrospective, who plays a bunch of 14, and got really excited about that. He was really, he's like, it's fascinating to see dancing animations of Kefka. You know, like seeing Kefka bounce around, and he's like, seeing Kefka animate. It's just, it's weird seeing him in game form. But yeah, very exciting. I wish I was ready. I wish I had time to play 14. Many, many things have pulled me away from 14, unfortunately, but thank you for the update, Carl. Battle Royale is really fun in Fortnite. Battle Royale in general is not a way I like to spend a ton of time, but every now and then I like to jump in, and no regrets for whenever I do, because that is a pulse-pounding experience. I think is one of those things in video games that you can assign the term pulse-pounding. Bjornar Haldsvik completed the original PS1 Resident Evil on my PS3. Respect for going back and playing the least scary Resident Evil on my PS3 with the glorious, and I just mean when they remade it on GameCube, it's like dark, actually, like the environments are dark. with the glorious English voiceover, which makes me think of an old spaghetti western. A favorite is Keoma. Have you seen it? And what's some obscure spaghetti westerns worth watching? I don't know. Keoma, I am not familiar with, and that is not a genre. That's something that is worth discussing. Pops to the top of my head. Maybe somebody in FF6 anime when. Actually, it's funny that I will say this about Final Fantasy VI. I conceived with my friend Todd, and we will likely continue to conceive because we probably won't see it in our lifetime. We'll think about this for the rest of our lives. But I want to do a Final Fantasy VI Netflix limited series, a 3-part limited series based on Final Fantasy VI. Netflix or Hulu or YouTube Red. Somebody pick it up, and you do 3 episodes. Episode 1 ends with Kefka, with Terra getting in her Esper form and flying off and blowing everybody up. And part 2 obviously ends with the world being destroyed, part 3's World of Ruin. And I wrote like 40 pages of part 1. This was like in the 90s. And maybe not 90s. No, that's a lie. This was like 2004, I think. 2004, 2005, right around the time we started Game Trailers. And a friend of mine, Adam Tinsley, who is on the Big Bada Boom cast, which is hosted by Ryan Kramer and Brent Phillips. Brent Phillips built EasyAllies.com and Sifted.net. And sorry. My throat is sore. Adam is on that podcast, and I follow Adam on Twitter, and Adam used to work for Game Trailers. And Adam also wrote just the first part, but also conceived like the same exact thing. And he mentioned it on Twitter, and I was like, what? And he was like, oh yeah, you never thought about that? And I'm sure I'm probably not the only person to think about that. But the 2 hours, no way. There's no way you could do that story in 2 hours. But 6, I think you could do it. I believe. But sorry, I need to get updated on spaghetti westerns. G-Man, sir, did you play Yoshi's Woolly World on the Wii U? I did. It's adorable. I enjoyed it. It's Woolly, right? I think you wrote Wally. Wally World. Maggie Freyer, quick question. Do you have a set date for the anniversary stream? I saw the live show announced, but I wasn't sure about the stream. I believe the anniversary stream it will be on our Tuesday stream that week. That is our current plan. Billy Ranto, here's a tough one. Flash FM or Emotion 98.3? Remember those drives under the neon lights? And try to make this impossible choice. It's not impossible for me. Flash FM wins. Flash FM's got a little more energy. Emotion 98.3 is a little calmer. There are some really good hits on 98.3, but Flash FM. For those of you not familiar with what we're talking about, these are specifically Vice City radio stations. I think they're just in Vice City. Maybe. I know there's some radio stations that are global, maybe not global, but definitely across the U.S. that are in multiple Grand Theft Auto games. But it's funny, Emotion 98.3 didn't jump into my mind when I first read that question this morning. But Flash FM, I was like, Flash FM? Like Grand Theft Auto Flash FM? And sure enough, that was a Grand Theft Auto reference. I like that we haven't talked about Disneyland. I don't think there are any Disneyland questions. There is a Grand Theft Auto question, though. And, of course, a Batman question. Because Cover Jones is going to talk about Batman. Morgan Mohala, what do you do to improve your business acumen? It is nice that everything seems to be running smoothly, and the allies are happy. I like that everything seems to be running smoothly. The facade, the smoke and mirrors is functioning. Everything is proceeding as I have foreseen. But, as the leader of this business, how are you honing your edge to make the company better? Also, there's a lot of talk about the company requirements from the GT days, such as strict review deadlines, top 10s every week, etc., not being conducive to a good working environment. While I agree that pushing people too hard can result in fatigue, I also can't help but think that the punctual reviews and consistent content served as a credit to the GT name. Of course. Yeah, it serving as a credit to the GT name and that not working out for us to do right now. Both of those things are true. I also can't help but think that the punctual... no, I know that top 10s are not coming back, and reviews will be delayed to give a full and honest take on a game, but does it concern you that it may be a detriment to the Easy A brand? It did. It concerns me less as time goes on, because you were saying everything seems to be running smoothly, and the allies are happy. But... I'm trying to think if there's another point. Oh, what do I do to improve my business acumen? Do things I've never done before. I've never set up ticketing. When we did ticketing at our event last year, it was set up through the event itself, through the venue. It was a little frustrating because they took a while to get that set up, but once it got set up, then we did ticketing. They don't have ticketing at this venue, and so I got to figure that out. Amanda's done that before. Amanda's done a lot of theater in Los Angeles, and she's handled a lot of that, and so she's helped me run through it. But Morgan, I improved my business acumen by constantly doing new stuff. Trying and doing things that I've never done before. Sometimes because I'm like, oh, I want to try something new, and other times I'm like, oh, crap. I got to do that thing I've never done before, don't I? Louis Sandiford, hey Jones, just a small suggestion for a thing to do in the near future. Twitter and Facebook verification. I wish. There are a couple reasons for doing this. All of these I probably know. Your personalities now, that means managing your brand. Brand manager understands this. A verification mark prevents nefarious people from putting things out in your name. While it may seem to you that there's only a very low chance of this happening right now, why wait to act? It means that people trying to find the allies on Twitter, Facebook don't struggle in doing so. The Facebook page, as an example, doesn't have too many followers, so a little check mark would demonstrate to people that it's an official page and not some fan page. 3, it looks professional and helps get you noticed. This is channeling my inner brand manager here, but a little blue tick is a status symbol in and of itself. This means you get retweeted more when replying to a tweet. That increases visibility and helps the brand. It's small, but every little bit helps. Louis, you're totally right. And Louis, actually, if you want to go to patreon.com/easyallies, if you are a $1 or above patron, then you're watching this. But if you're watching this and you got the post up, he put links down if you are curious to get yourself verified on Twitter and Facebook. Louis, there's a big problem. We tried. I have tried 3 separate times to be verified on Twitter, personally, at Trailer Jones. And I tried with Easy Allies when I think it was when we were 1 year old. I was like, hey, let me just submit just for kicks, and no. So yeah, good idea. Bishop should go. Good idea. But it's a 2-part process. There's the application part, and then there's the approval part. And I have personally never been approved on Twitter, and we were not approved when we tried. I jumped through so many hoops. If you go to my Twitter page, why was I rejected? They get the same thing every time. And I don't talk about it that often because I'm not like, I didn't get approved. Who knows what weird approval process. You know who's approved for verified? You know who's verified? Amanda. I think she has 3,000 followers on Twitter. I have 24. No approval. But see, it's not a popularity contest. It's like who you know, how recognizable you are. I think they probably recognize Amanda from commercials, and we're like, oh yeah, her. And then they saw me playing video games with my dog, and we're like, no. Who knows? Who knows what they need to see? When I tried one time, I put up the image of me holding up the belt from Kinda Funny Live. I'm like, there's me on stage with our logo on a giant screen in the background holding up a wrestling belt. They're like, nah, you're irrelevant. It's like, okay. Kyle Matter, seeing as you're a huge fan of the DC animated universe, I was wondering if you've ever watched the show Young Justice. It has a wonderful characters, interesting plot lines, and is overall one of the best representations of the DC universe. Correct. It ran for 2 seasons before being unjustly canceled, but is being brought back for a 3rd season. I know, thanks to fan enthusiasm. If you can find the time, I think this is one you would really enjoy. Love and respect as always. I'm there. I watched both seasons. I'm ready. I'm so ready. And one thing that, I lucked out by it taking a long time to get to season 3. I did not watch Young Justice right off the bat. I took my time. And I love, what's his name? The guy who played Pike in the new Star Trek movies. Bruce Greenwood, I think. It does Batman, and he's done Batman for other things, and he's one of my favorite Batman. He's got this old Batman voice, and not an old, like Kevin Conway being like, oh, I'm an old man. Not that, like, old Batman, but, like, kind of this mature, like a scholarly Batman. I don't know, it's interesting. It's a cool vibe. I think he does Young Justice. If he doesn't, then Bruce Greenwood did a good Batman whenever he did it. But I like the Batman in that. I like that he's kind of in charge of them, but isn't around a lot. I like I like that they deal with new characters throughout the show, but there is a really interesting through line that goes with all of the events of those first 2 seasons. Just smart, just a really well-written show. A show that knows what it has and celebrates it by making those characters that you're familiar with represented in a really interesting way. Separates itself from like what Teen Titans did, which is really tough, considering you'd think Teen Titans Young Justice, like that those would be very similar. But Teen Titans is great. It's very entertaining. Young Justice, I just think, is better. for what it did. Alexander Zirianov, comment number 2 this week. The EZA forum community have collectively decided the top 25 games of 2017. The best 5 are: number 5, Nier Automata; number 4, Super Mario Odyssey; number 3, The Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild; number 3, number 2, Horizon Zero Dawn; number 1, Persona 5. How do you feel about Horizon beating Mario and Zelda? I love it. One of my favorite things about GOTYs are weird GOTYs. I love the people that gave GOTY to, like, Edith Finch. I love people that gave GOTY to PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds. Or I love it. I love everybody freaking out at the end of the year and being like, you know what? You know what? That was my favorite game. You're like, yes. I love it. There were moments where I wanted Persona 5 to be Game of the Year. My personal Game of the Year. There were moments where I wanted to upset. I wanted to, like, walk into that meeting and be like, Persona 5. But alas, I didn't feel that way. Kyle Lee, have you jumped into the Olympics DLC for Steep? I hadn't played it when it first came out, but between Olympics hype and Bossman streaming SSX hits me emotionally. It makes me want to break open some SSX. I had to give it a shot to scratch an itch. It's not a perfect game, but it's definitely fun. It's an Indiana Jones action sequence, if you can hear it happening right now. That's a small plane. Making a circle around my house. They found me, Marty. I don't know how, but they found me. I haven't, I was hoping you were gonna be like, it's really great! It's not a perfect game, but it's definitely fun. Yeah, I'd have to look up, I don't know if we ever got sent a code for that. I gotta check in with Blood. Maybe Blood can let me know right now. But yeah, Steep is fun. I had to be critical of Steep. That was one of those things where I was like, I'm enjoying this game, but I'm reviewing it too, so I should review it. You know, be honest. Crazy Bird, recently you mentioned how you will play Red Dead 2 online when it releases and run an EZA gang. This got me thinking. It would be cool if there was a dedicated weekly or monthly gaming session where any available ally played a multiplayer game with patrons. The participating patrons could be selected randomly so that everyone who wants to join gets a shot. Perfect games for this could be Sea of Thieves, Red Dead 2 Online, or PUBG. I believe this happens already in a way when an ally tweets that they will be playing X game with anyone who wants to join, and that Ben's Dojo invites other players. However, a dedicated time for multiplayer games other than fighting games can make these sessions less spontaneous and more organized. I know you guys are slammed with work already, but I thought this could be an idea for you to archive. I like every EZA member and would love to play games with them. This is my selfish way to try to make that happen. Thank you, Crazy Bird. Consider that archived. That's a good idea. Well, thank you. 1111. 1111. Matt Kurlowski. Not Kurlowski. Matt Kurlowski. Kurlowski, I'm guessing. Kur-LA-SKEE. It's actually spelled Kurylowski. So it kind of has that Russian vibe to it. So I want to be like Matt Kurlowski, but Kurlowski. He has a comment too. I'm going to double down with another Star Wars question this week. What's your takeaway of the Game of Thrones writers getting at least 2 Star Wars movies? Are we getting things too planned out in advance, or is this welcome news because of their high-profile work before Star Wars? I've seen some comments about how they struggled with doing their own stories when not following George R.R. Martin's work directly for Game of Thrones, but I think that's too much of a simplification of the situation. Either way, we have at least 7 Star Wars movies unreleased, but we only know the subject matter of 2. Yeah, I'm pretty lukewarm about this, not because I don't think they're going to make good stuff, but this is kind of like in games when you find out some game. It's kind of like how I feel now, where it's like, there's probably an Animal Crossing coming to Switch. It's like, until you have a trailer for it, I don't care. I don't want to talk about it. I don't care. I'm too invested in it emotionally that I can't just kind of, oh, sure, more, oh, I wonder what they would bring. Boy, you know, let's read all the Beinhoff's books and try to conceptualize what kind of Star Wars story. I don't care. I'm not going to waste my energy on something that's not going to happen for like 5 years or 6 years or 7 years. I'm a fan of more Star Wars. I think people are, I don't share that opinion where people think, too much Star Wars. No such thing. It'll end. People get sick of Star Wars. I don't know if it's these poor guys. I don't know if it's going to get to that point when they finally make something, but Solo is going to be a really interesting test to see how much of this crap people can take. But I think Disney's been smart about Marvel, and I think if people are like, oh, okay, too much Star Wars, then, because they're having to make up a lot of stuff. Disney didn't invent Black Panther. Black Panther was already there, whereas Disney's kind of like looking around at the how wide the net is for Star Wars and trying to figure out, you know, what they can get to. And I don't think this deal happened if they didn't have at least some kind of an idea for what they want to do. I just don't care right now. It's really hard for me to care. I care about Star Wars, but I don't care about a thing that doesn't exist. Small Leviathan, I just wanted to clarify something about my recent submission to the community showcase. Huber's Bard costume included a codpiece, not a diaper. He created a bunch of characters, I don't remember the name of the game, and it looked like Huber had a diaper on. This is a reference to Bard Quest, an earlier work by the same author. Don't be fooled by the Bard's silly outfit, though. They are some of the most destructive classes and a force to be reckoned with. Sounds like Huber. Finally, nope. Parasite Paladins got one after this. Dominic Barlow, I love when the Frame Traps Hitake conversations get into the nitty-gritty of what you do at Easy Allies, your responsibilities, your ethical practices, and what have you. Does the existence of conversations like those on podcasts change the dynamic at group meetings in any explicit way, or do you largely treat that as one thing and business talk as another? That's pretty transparent. When we talk about business, I try to be a little more transparent, or probably too much so sometimes. Every now and then I'll say something on Cup of Jones where Bloodworth at the end's like, be great if you hadn't said that. So I try to be as reserved as possible, but on Frame Trap, it's nice when we can be free to talk about things because a lot of times we talk on Slack, it's hard to pick up sarcasm, and it's hard to be really honest. There's sometimes where I want to message somebody on Slack where it's like, oh, I'll bring it up on the Tuesday group meeting. It's just not worth bothering them at 2 in the morning, or it doesn't need to be addressed at this moment. And there's nothing like good old human, 1v1 personal interaction. And so it's a lot of times when you see... One thing that's really hard for us to do, and one thing that lends to a lot of disorganization before streams, is we're all talking. We all get together, and Ben will be like, Huber! And like they'll start talking, and we're like, hey, can we get this audio check? Can we audio check? Come on, guys! And so it can be hard to try to get everybody on track because we finally get a chance to really talk to each other and see, facial expressions and pick up the little minutia that's great about actually having a conversation with somebody in person. And so even when you see those conversations on Frame Trap, even when you see kind of like, oh yeah, you do work on that, or it deserves to be recognized that you are working on this, or you're doing this thing, or I love at the end of the podcast when we recommend videos and we get to, especially if that person's there on the panel, we get to be like, hey, this person did this cool thing. So yeah, I like those things. It's just got to be something that is okay to talk about. It can be exciting to talk about things ahead of time, but one thing that we've definitely been burnt on, that is a lesson I learned very early on in Easy Allies, is don't talk about something until it's ready. Don't release a retrospective until all the episodes are finished. So on and so forth. Finally, Parasite Paladin. What is happiness? It was the last question, actually. What is happiness? The last question is always very short. Ebo Show likes to jump in. Ibrahim likes to jump in at the last minute. What is happiness? What is happiness? Happiness is Easy Allies, I'll tell you that much. Happiness is the life that you have afforded me through your patronage, through your support. We had some people talking here in this Cup of Jones post here, last week's, about growth. We talked about how that number on Patreon is stagnating. It is stagnating, but I mentioned this last week, and we need to address this as well, that if we get more money the next month, it's a little better than stagnating, because those people decided to come back the next month. You are seeing a patronage, like our podcast sponsors, you're seeing that fluctuate because someone drops out for 500, and the next month we have a sponsor already lined up, at least one for the month, a new one for the month of March, the March of month. So there is a coming and going of interests financially within Easy Allies. So it's not a matter of like a bunch of people locked in and none of them are budging and no new people are coming in. New people are coming in all the time because people are also leaving. It's just kind of the growth, the natural growth, the evolution of Patreon and of Easy Allies. I've definitely been talking for an hour and 18 minutes. Happiness is a state of mind. The world doesn't get happy. The world doesn't, you don't like step into happiness. It's like, oh, it smells happy. It's like, happiness is a state of mind, and that's something I talk a lot about. This great year of like stress and renewal that I went through right before we made the transition from Viacom to Defy Media, where I kind of knew that the wheels were in motion to possibly shut down Game Trailers or to move Game Trailers, and I just got super stressed out because I didn't know what I was going to do with my career. I couldn't talk to anybody about it because I was only given that information, and a lot of it I just gleaned from not being stupid, and some of it had been explicitly told to me, and so I got really stressed, and I needed to find outlets for stress. When I got into meditation, it's when I got into working out a little bit more. It's when I kind of started to change my workload and get a little bit smarter. I realized in reading books about depression, reading books about anxiety, reading books about stress, and trying to be as happy as possible, that happiness was a state of mind, and it would fascinate me in the process of one day where I would be happy and then not happy and then happy again. And I would think, what happened? What happened for 3 hours where I just wasn't happy? Like no circumstances changed. My perception of those circumstances changed, but nothing like happened. Like the universe didn't shift. It's literally just my perception of my state of mind. And, I wish that could be enlightening for you. I wish that could be something where you're like, oh, thanks, Jones. I'm going to be happy forever now. It's impossible. And even having such a profound, what I felt was a profound realization, and thinking back later and being like, yeah, but that doesn't mean anything when I'm upset. Like if I'm depressed, you can't just tell somebody who's depressed to be happy. You certainly can try to empathize with someone who's depressed, but there's no way that you can know how they feel because it's not these physical circumstances. It's not something you can feel yourself. It is the accumulation of the permitted accumulation of negative feelings. You like being like, yeah, that negative thing happened and I'm going to carry it with me. I'm going to let that affect me because I think where I need to go somehow involves me feeling bad about myself. And I've been there. We've all been there. It's easy to do that. And so happiness for me is Disneyland. I just went to Disneyland this weekend and my allergies were at peak annoyance. I could barely breathe. I'm like driving down to like with my head back, like staring at the top of the car because I'm just like, please, like any tiny sensation was just like a dagger in the back of my nose and I would just sneeze. And I still had a great time because I love Disneyland. I still got like a couple beers and they have a Happy New Year, Chinese New Year festival. It's the year of the dog, so they got like Pluto everywhere. But we're like walking around at different places and, trying different beers and wine and eating little fun plates of Asian food, and it was great. But I think one of the things that makes me really happy about Disneyland is this clear separation between me being home and me being there. And it's kind of like I don't take texts, I don't check Slack, I don't like when I'm at Disneyland, I'm gone, and nothing gonna get me down. And I think hopefully everybody can. I hope. What is this? Easy Allies and Hogue Law were formed in the same month? That's fun. I was like, who said that? Oh, Hogue. Messages from people leaving can be pretty rough. Lots of situations where something awful happens to someone and they have to cut back on costs. Yeah. Thank you, Blood, for chiming in with that. I'm happy to. Not all bad, though. Sometimes it's good news that just shifts priorities, like having a baby. But it's great to, it's a good point to mention to patrons. Like, please let us know when you are leaving patreon.com, what's going on and what's happening in your life. And we love that perspective, and we read any and all. Not every ally lines up to read all of those messages, but those are received. Yeah, so happiness, what I encourage you to do is to find that place. I think a lot of the way I live my life is voraciously seeking happiness, like really thinking whenever I have a moment, it's like, oh, okay, Amanda's gone. She's running errands for 3 hours and I'm exporting something and I don't have anything to do. And it's, 8 o'clock at night. Like, okay, how can I be the most happy right now? What can I do? What are those things lined up that I just don't like happy? So I hope that you can find those things. I hope you can find those Disneylands, and I hope that you can space those out in your life, that you can set up those times, because it is weird. Like I would love to examine in my brain what happens when I go to Disneyland, when I allow myself to let these other things go. And maybe that is also happiness, is the permission to be fallible. You having an allowance for yourself to just let anything happen. I talk a lot about the way I think of life as a wheel, that sometimes you're going too slow, sometimes you're going too fast. I think happiness is when you and the world are in sync, when you know everything is either proceeding at the speed that you would like, or you're okay with whatever speed that is. And that to me is happiness. That is my own personal definition. And that's what you get. A Cup of Jones, you ask a question. But yeah, what's the meaning of life? What is happiness? Why video game? These are all eternal questions that we hope to answer here at Easy Allies and here just in life. Fast Pass Plus is the devil. Oh my goodness. Oh yeah, Rick Hogue. Just got back from Disney World. The annual Hogue family vacation. I'm chatting with Hogue, and while he's on vacation, he's a good man for messaging me while he's like at Animal Kingdom. Yeah, and when I was in the 2-hour line for Space Mountain, I would have welcomed some Slack messages. Yeah, that doesn't mean I'm not going to check Slack or Twitter or text or anything like that, but I don't have to. You know, it's like I let myself off the hook. I'll tell you when I don't let myself off the hook. Tuesdays. Today is Cup of Jones Day. Today is Group Stream Day. Tonight we are going to be streaming, let's do the math, 15, so with the breaks in between, it's probably like 4, 6. At least 6 different Dreamcast games. The fanciest of the first 15 minutes from all of the Dreamcast games that we will pick here at Easy Allies and hopefully get through as many as possible. But lots of Disneyland chat going. We finally got to Disneyland. Thanks, Rick Hogue. Nobody asked any Disneyland questions, and it's up to Mr. Rick Hogue to jump in and talk about his Disney World experience and Fast Pass Plus and wristbands and all that stuff. God, I miss it. We actually have friends of ours that are going to Disney World, and I was talking to her the other day, and I had to like leave. I was like, I can't talk about Disney World anymore. I'm getting too excited. I'd love to go to a different hotel that I've never been to before and go to Disney World. That'd be fun. Hope you had fun, Rick. I hope you enjoyed the Cup of Jones that we just had. Like I said, playing Dreamcast tonight. I'm not going to be doing any streams. I'm finishing up the Souls retrospective this week, and we're going to be getting that to you as soon as possible. Moving on to part 5, and want to get both of those done before we can put those up, so that there is a guarantee that you will get both of those at the same time. Not at the same time, but get one and then one immediately the week after, because that's how we do things now. But you will get those before we have our 2nd anniversary, which is nice. That if we make any announcements at our 2nd anniversary, people won't be like, wait a minute, didn't they announce the Souls retrospective? Isn't that not done yet? Thankfully, it'll be done by the time we meet for our 2nd anniversary. Unless the world ends. Hopefully that doesn't happen. Hopefully you come back 6 p.m. Pacific time, twitch.tv/EasyAllies for our group stream tonight. Got some Box Peak VO recording later today. Got a little Huber Syndrome, some fun things to shoot today. And I'm going to go check our mailbox right now and see if anything's in it. Cheers, everybody. Wait, cheers. Wait, I'll cheers twice. Cheers. Rick Hogue had fun. I had fun.